Hi, boys and girls, and happy Monday. So, in social studies this week, we're going to be looking at and examining empires. And you're probably thinking, isn't a civilization an empire? Well, maybe, maybe not. We want to talk about that with you. So, we asked you for your question of the day, some things about where you would have wanted to live and which civilization you wanted to be part of. And we're just kind of getting you thinking about the characteristics of those civilizations and the layout and the physical properties of those civilizations. And yes, technically, some of those civilizations are also empires. Chapter 4 is all about integrating large scale empires. So these were really big empires. Empires, and the ones we studied a little bit already, are big, but these are really big empires. They go to the next level. So let's just kind of talk about what we mean by that a little bit. So, first of all, I'm going to escape out of here and just kind of go back to your question of the day. I hope you had a chance to share with your classmates what you thought would be the best place to live and some of the reasons behind that. And then I'm going to take you right now to chapter 4. So, in your Google Classroom, you have a new topic called chapter 4. So, in chapter 4, we're talking about what led to the emergence and collapse of large scale empires. So, these are the really big empires, some of which I'm assuming you've already heard of or wondering if you've already heard of. So, empires like the Roman Empire, empires like the Greek Empire, Persian, Mauryan, let's see what else. What other empire? Oh, Han, the Han Dynasty. We usually say dynasties for China. And I think, let me check my list. Those are the ones that we're going to be looking at. So, do you know anything about those? Have you heard about those? Have you seen any movies about those? Have you read anything about those? Have you tapped into anything? Maybe come across something on YouTube? Maybe one of your parents is interested in empires and ancient studies. So, in section 1, let's just start off with what is the exact difference between a civilization and an empire because, my goodness, they seem like they would be similar. So, why don't you please just pause this video and go ahead and shout out again the 7 characteristics of a civilization? I know we've been going over and over and over that, and by now you probably know them like the back of your hand. But why don't you go ahead and revisit those again because those build on empires. So, go ahead and pause the video and remind yourself what those 7 characteristics of a civilization are, and then we'll start again. Okay, I bet you guys went ahead and listed all of these things right here: cities, government and law, system of writing, specialization, social systems, complex technology, and organized religion. On top of all of that, what an empire has, and especially a large scale empire, it has these things as well. It has um, large size, it expands, it is a big territory. Okay, so we've got that going on in empires. We also have the way that they are controlled, the government style, the technique of governing is different. And then we have growth. So a lot of times, let's just start at the beginning. So expansion of civilizations, they're large. So they generally, empires get bigger by conquering many small civilizations or smaller civilizations. So they conquer and they conquer and they take over more and more land and more peoples. With that, they're also uniting people who may have different languages, different customs, different ways of life. And so an emperor has to be able to unite all of those different people and bring them together. And a lot of times when we talk about how they are governed, that was with some kind of force. You either do it my way or we'll figure out a solution for you, which may have been death or getting rid of you somehow out of the empire. There'd be some rough consequences for not doing things the way the emperor said. And part of that is just control of a large area and a large amount of people. So we have that. And then just thinking about the growth, a lot of empires were quick to expand and then crashed. They fall apart. They get conquered. Disease takes over, and a particularly good emperor dies, and they can't recover from that. They can't protect their boundaries. Something happens and they break apart, or they're conquered by someone else. And we'll go into details of those with each of the empires that we're going to be studying, but just suffice it to know that that's kind of what happens. So now I've said all of this, and I've said an empire for specific thinking is the seven characteristics of a civilization, along with their large size, along with how they're governed, and along with their growth, expansion, and contraction, really. But you'll notice as we watch some other video clips and we read some other parts of books that not everyone defines it exactly like that. And this is with humans again. We're in a social science. So different people sometimes define empire a little different way, but we all have the same basic idea in mind. It's a large area governed by one person that and this one person is governing people that may have different customs, different languages. He has to keep a tight rein. I say he, mostly he's, and they have to protect their boundaries. And a lot of times it would rise quickly and fall. So that's what we're talking about in empires in this chapter. That was all of section 1, actually. So it's a very short introduction there just to get you thinking about the differences and similarities. And I just want to show you one more thing. I think it is. Oh, you know what? Maybe we'll save that for section 2. But we're going to notice that there's a lot of people in these empires. Okay, so we're talking about millions of people. Do you guys remember back in Hunters and Gatherers when we were talking about Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic, and we were talking about like maybe 100 people living together in a group, and they would hunt and gather, and they would survive in that fashion. And now we're on to large scale empires, truly not that many years onward, and we're living as humans in a much different way. And some way, I would like you just to think about this. Some people think that humans were at their prime during the hunting and gathering stage of our development. Because, what do you think? Why do you think some people propose that humans were at their prime of their development at the beginning of at the time of hunting and gathering? So I want you just to pause, turn and talk to someone near you, and then answer that in terms of why aren't we better today with empires and countries and lots of people living together? What's the difference there? Why would some people say we're past our prime? So, really, just a couple of things that people have thrown out before is that when we were hunters and gatherers, we had to have a varied experience. We had to be experts on finding food, we had to be experts on making clothes, we had to be an expert on the terrain around us, we had to be an expert on the enemies. All of us had to do all of the things all of the time. Now that we live in civilizations and empires, we are specialized. I just know how to make pottery. That's all I need to know how to do. And the guy down the street just needs to know how to weave fabric. And the other guy just needs to know how to be a trader. And so our brains have become so specific and our bodies so specific that now we eat grain that's grown by the farmers. We don't have a varied diet or not as varied. We only know how to do one thing really well instead of a bunch of different things. And so maybe our mindset and our growth for our bodies and our brains has changed to be not as good. It's just one idea, just one theory. Wondering what you guys thought about that. Okay, so that is our introduction to section 1. And now what we're going to do is, since we're going to be thinking about a few of these empires, we'd like you to go to your Google Classroom and we'd like you to open up the KWL that is in chapter 4 and fill out the first 2 columns, please. A KWL is what you know, what you want to know, and what you've learned. You haven't learned yet, so just hold on that section. But we are curious, what do you already know about the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, the Mauryan Empire, the Han Empire, the Persian Empire? What do you know already? Please don't put IDK for everything. I know you know something. You guys watch TV, you watch YouTube, you listen to music. You know something of at least one of those empires. And then curious to know what you want to know. So go ahead and maybe type in there the word Greece and then what you want to know, the word Han and what you want to know. And then we can get a sense of what you're curious about. And then eventually we'll go back and type in what we learned. So that'll be your next activity when this video shuts off. And then going back to our agenda for today, then you are going to do a Kahoot. The Kahoot is stuff you might not know about. The Kahoot is something that is coming up. that we're going to be learning about these things, we thought it might be fun just to see what you already know in the Kahoot. So you don't feel bad if you get them all wrong. We're going to be learning, and by the end of this chapter, you'll be able to get them all right. But right now, give it a good try. Try your best, see what you can do, and finish that Kahoot. And then you're going to watch a little Khan Academy video that's about 7 minutes on empires and comparing a couple of the most well known and the biggest. So just comparing what was important to them, why they might have risen, and where they're located. He's going to go through the map with you. So go ahead and take that in and then finish the reflection for today, please, and make sure you have that going. Of course, on Friday, the Q&R is due, so making sure you have that done. Have a great Monday, boys and girls. I hope you are enjoying yourself.